Welcome. We're going to work on one of my favorite paintings. I think I say that about all of them. This one is I Love Wine. And I think I Love Wine is perfect for this time of year with Valentine's right around the corner. So let's go through the colors that we should have for paint. We should have our chrome yellow, our raw sienna, our blackout white. I have a bright red and a Mars black. And I'm using acrylic paint tonight. And I have 3 brushes in a water cup. Red Solo cup, don't drink it up. Want to make sure that you keep this away from anything you are sipping today. And we have got 3 brushes that we're using today. Anytime we change our colors or we take our brushes out of the water, you want to make sure you play the drums and smack your paper towel. And that's how you're going to have the correct amount of dampness. Nobody wants to say moisture in your brush between color changes so you don't get drips. Okay, so you should have a big flat brush, a bigger pointer brush, and a tiny pointer brush for details. Let's get into it. All right, so we're going to go ahead and start with our background. Now I have my canvas pre-traced. If you have the tracers, feel free to get the image on your canvas as well. And I'm rocking with an 11 by 14 canvas tonight. So big flat brush. I'm going to go ahead and start up with my background color. And that's going to be a little bit of a mixture. So I'm going to take a big old scoop of white and a big old scoop of my raw sienna or that darker yellow. Just going to mix those together until I get something that's like a nice kind of cream color. All right, so you want to work that into your bristles, work that into your brush. But you don't want a boogered up brush. Loaded up is good, not boogered up. You want to keep it classy. So I'm going to kind of squish some of the paint out of there. That looks good. Loaded up, not boogered up. And I'm going to use this just to kind of establish where some of my background stuff is. All right. There's 2 ways to use this brush, flat like you're painting a wall, or sideways and skinny like a knife. So I'm going to go sideways and skinny like a knife and just kind of graph out this outside area of my wine glass. I'm going to follow the wine pouring in. And I'm not being too careful with my brush strokes right now because it can just be a mess. It does not have to be perfect. Going around the heart. This is called blocking in. So we are not going for any solid, perfect coverage. We are kind of going for a mess. And if you blob into something like I just blobbed into the heart, who cares? It's fine. I kind of have a rule. If we haven't painted it yet, it doesn't really count, especially with light colors. We can definitely go back in and fix it. I've got water in my paint to get a little extra mileage out of it. I also want to take this. I know I have like a double rim to my glass right here. Just paint over that, it's fine. I'm going to kind of take this inside the wine area there. The other place that I want to work this into is inside of the stem of the brush, but I do still want to be able to tell where that is. So if you paint over, hopefully you can still kind of see where that lives in a little bit. Awesome. All right, once we've got that done, now the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to dip our brush straight up into some raw sienna. Don't even rinse it. Who cares? Just going to get into that raw sienna, that darker yellow color. And we're going to go, for lack of a better word, banana town. So we're just going to take this color all over in big old wonky brush strokes. We're just going to go for it. We are adding some texture. We are adding some, I don't know, different shades, different tones all over. This is just going to be a little more fun in the end to look at. Don't try to blend it in too much. Just be brushy. And if you get it over the edge of something, good. That's art. It's artsy. It'll be fine. All right. once I got some texture in there, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to dip this same old dirty brush into a little bit of white. I don't want to mess up the whole pile of white, so I'm going to go off the edge of the white with this dirty brush, just get a little bit on those bristles. I'm going to work on kind of lightening up the background in this top left corner. So top left corner, I'm just going to kind of blend in some of this white here and there. I said blend in, but it's more like we're just, call this being kind of schmutzy, just kind of getting it on there and being schmutzy and messy. I'm going to take some of it down into the wine glass a little bit. There's no hard edge where the light starts and the dark stops or vice versa. So just slap it on. Sometimes I work on kind of flipping my brush back and forth. Remember, getting it all on there. I love it. It's subtle, but it's going to be great in the end. Once that's on there, the next part is a little tricky. And let's go ahead and go back in. I'm still not going to rinse my brush. Who cares? Let's go back in and get some of that raw sienna. Once you got some raw sienna, we're going to tackle this bottom right corner. So bottom right corner, we're going to go at this guy again. Kind of just get some, ooh, don't want to say moist dampness. Some damp brush strokes down there. And then we're going to dip the very tip of the brush in a little teeny tiny bit of black. Now, here's the deal. A little goes a long way. I don't know if you can see that, just like a little teeny tiny bit. I'm going to kind of work it into the bristles, which means I just boop, 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 kind of stab it in a little bit. It's a little bit of paint. With that little bit of black in my brush, I'm going to go into this background down here and work on darkening it up. Now, at first, whoa, it's so saturated and dark. So we got to just flippy, flippy, flippy. Flippy, 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 going in the wine glass stem. I'll find it later. Okay, it's starting to kind of lighten up now with these little brush strokes, right? Now I'm just being kind of shmeary, kind of schmutzy, just kind of tackling that bottom right corner, pulling it up the right edge a little bit, pulling it down to this bottom left corner a little bit. I don't know, it's just going to give us a little shadow. Just a little dimension, some extra brush strokes. I don't know. You can make your background look how you want it to look. If you want it to be more swirly, you want it to have more texture, any of those things is the correct answer, whatever you would like to do with it. But I'm thinking that looks pretty good right now. After all, the wine is the important part. So we're going to take our big flat brush, jump it up and down in the water cup really good to rinse it out, and leave it there because it's on a break. And we don't want that acrylic paint to dry, waterproof and permanent on our paintbrush. So go ahead and leave it there. Next things next, we are going to figure out our wine. All right, I'm going to go to that big pointer brush. Big pointer brush, I'm just going to start off with red. Easy peasy. Load up the brush, and that means that you kind of work the paint into the bristles back and forth until that brush doesn't feel dry, or you can't really like, I don't know, you kind of feel that it's dry bristles in wet paint. Once it all kind of feels smooshy, technical terms, then you know you're good, but just be aware this is a boogered up brush. Cannot paint with that. So go ahead and squeegee that out. Loaded up is great. Boogered up is not. If we want a nice thin line, we're just going to barely touch the canvas. And where we want it to be thicker, we're going to push down on the canvas. It has nothing to do with how much paint is in the brush. It's how you use it. All right, let's go. We're going to find this top line here. And I'm just going to paint around the edge of my line, cutting off my background and swooshing it on up into my heart. All right, now this is the back edge. The back edge is going to go down, kind of shape up, get a little more paintwork in, shape up the wine glass. We're going to go right down to the bottom of the wine glass. I'm going to reload again. Right, long, smooth brush strokes. If you get sketchy business, that's dry, crusty canvas coming through. If you get sketchy business, you just don't have enough water in your paint, or you just don't have enough paint on your brush. So you want to make sure you get enough water and paint in that brush. All right, we're going to fill that in. It's our first coat. We have 75 to go. Once we figured out where that lives, I'm going to give these wine splashes some friends. This little heart here, he needs a friend. So I'm just going to freehand this. I'm going to imagine that there would be kind of like an upside down drip that winds up looking like a little heart. I know my background's still wet. I don't even care. I think it's going to be fine. Let's have some more splashes. These are upside down teardrops or a really squished out balloon. So right off the edge of my glass here is the bottom of this balloon. I'm just going to come up, give it the top by swirling it around, and then boop, back to the point. And then perhaps another little one over here. If you want to, you can try and be a little clever. You can just use the shape of this brush to make a teardrop. Here's how I would do it. I would squish it towards the bottom of the teardrop and then rotate it away to the tip. It's kind of messy, but we can shape it up later. These ones are smaller, so somewhere out here, I'm just going to squish and wiggle and whoop to the tip. And maybe a couple other little ones. Squish and wiggle, and squish, wiggle, and squish, and wiggle. We're going to shape them up later. It's good enough for right now. All right, those are going to be the main areas that we have to work with for our wine, but this is flat looking because it's just one color. We need some dimension, so let's mix up some dimension. We're going to go ahead and mix up a darker wine color. So same big pointer brush. I'm going to grab a big old scoop of red, plop it down somewhere. And again, the rule with this black, it's so heavily saturated, you only need a little tiny bit. So I'm just going to take a little tiny bit of black, itty bitty, and I'm going to work that into the red. Now a little goes a long way. We're going to wind up with something really kind of like a deep Merlot or a Malbec. Perhaps Shiraz, I'm not sure, but I'll leave it up to the wine experts. So we have something that's like this, right? It's a little bit deeper color. Once we've got that in our brush worked in, we're going to work on going back through our wine. Now the name of the game, is not, it's like I've had some wine, not to cover everything up that we did, but to accent it. So we're not going to cram this brush down. We're just going to barely go over with the tip of the brush and just kind of work it through and add some swooshies, add some swirls, add some dimension, bringing it up through the heart. Woo, right? Bringing it up. There we go. We are just kind of layering this in, adding some extra brush strokes. I love it. I'm going to add a little swoosh onto these guys too. Mer, mer, mer. There we go. I don't know what mer means, but I feel like there's lots of mer. Lovely. At least it's not just one color now. We have a couple extra colors in there, but we need more. Time to rinse this guy out. Rinse out that big pointer brush, dump it up and down in your water cup, leave it in there. We're gonna go to a little pointer brush. This one's a little bit littler than I would like, but it's fine. It'll work. It's not gonna hold a lot of paint, but we're gonna make it work. All right, we're gonna take this little brush and we're going to mix up a deeper, a deeper color. So if this was our Malbec Merlot color, now we need to go like eggplant. So I'm gonna grab big old goober of red, plop that in there, and a big old goober of black and mix that in there. So I get a pretty deep color now. This is like an aubergine or an eggplant. It's pretty dark, and that's okay. All right, load that up. I'm gonna put some water in this paint. So right from my water cup, I'm dripping in some water to just loosen up the paint. There we go. Now we're gonna go back over everything. We need to add some extra lines. This means maybe even going outside the lines a little bit. Right? Kind of going outside the lines, getting some extra flow, extra dimension in here. See, it doesn't hold a lot of paint. There's not a lot of bristles on this, so I'm gonna have to keep reloading up. You get that sketchy business. Now, the one line that we can't really go outside of too much is the actual edge of our glass, because that's glass. The wine isn't going to be spilling out on this side of the glass. So I can add all kinds of extra little lines up here, get some craziness going in here, but not really on the outside edge. You got to keep it inside the glass. Good. And a little wiggle room outside the main area that we already painted. On the inside of the glass, maybe it's kind of spilling. All right, here's our hearts. Ooh, going around. Fun thing about this, it's just so freeing. You don't have to follow the edge exactly. You have some wiggle room. I love wiggle room in paintings. I love when it can just look a little free, a little wobbly. I feel like it's just more fun to look at. And it also kind of helps hide quote unquote mistakes. I don't believe in mistakes. I think you can learn from everything you do and you can really make anything work, especially with acrylic paints. But, there might be something you don't love as much on your painting. One brushstroke that you're not a fan of. And this way, if you have wiggle room, kind of helps cover up a lot of that. Your eye is just going to wander around the whole painting and not get stuck on that one thing that you maybe don't love because wiggle room. So speaking of wiggle room, I'm going outside the edges on a lot of these little teardrops, kind of using this wiggle room to shape them up a little bit. And I love it. We're gonna go ahead and mix up a lighter color now. So whatever I had for that Merlot, I'm just gonna add in some white. I'm gonna add in some white. It's a little brush, so let's take a big scoop. This is now kind of like I don't know, purple, like a purpley plum color. And of course, water. Let's mix water in. So we get some mileage out of this paint. All right, there's our color. I was hoping it would be a little more raspberry. So let's try a big old scoop of red. Excellent. I love it. A little more water. All right, again, this brush doesn't hold a lot, so he's a little boogered up, and that's okay. We got our light color now. Let's do it. Let's go through. We're gonna get it in there. Add some dimensional brush strokes. Going outside the lines a little bit here and there. And in all fairness, we do have probably, I would say, at least one more color to go. Whipping it around in the hearts. I don't know if you can really see that. It doesn't really come through on the camera too much, but trust me, it's there. It's a new tone. New tone for our paint. All right. Now we're gonna go full on pink. You don't have to rinse this brush. It's pretty tiny anyway, but I'm gonna grab a scoop of white, plop it down somewhere clean, and a big old scoop of red and mix it in. So a scoop of white and a scoop of red. I'm gonna mix those together, add the water. I'm gonna cheat and use this big brush. Let's just get it. There we go. Mix that in. Now we're not going for a wash. A wash is like really thinned out paint. It would basically run off your plate. I don't want to wash. I want to work the paint and the water together until I get something that's kind of like ink. It's ink. It's definitely thinned out, but it should hopefully not run everywhere if I was to lift up my plate, right? It might start, but it's not like water just dripping down. Got a little bit of paint in there to keep it like ink. Okay, let's get it with this little brush. We're gonna go back through our paint, back through our wine. Here we go. Oh yeah. If you don't want to see like wiggly lines where your arm is kind of like in a little jaggedy, then let's see, let's do one of those. That's better. You don't want to see those wiggly lines, just big Long arm motions. Paint from your arm. Don't paint from your hand. Paint from your arm. Get some of that wiggle room. And then don't worry, we're going to be going back in with our red to get red wine back. Fantastic. All right, I'm going to give it a little bit of a rinse. I'm going to go into red, straight up red again. Now, I know we have that chrome yellow there. That is an option as well if you want a different tone to your red. Let's see what that would do. You grab some of that chrome yellow and you mix it into the red. It's going to give you kind of a deep vermilion or orange. It's a very dark, like orangey red. So it's not going to look like pumpkin orange, but it's just going to give you a little different tone, a little different hue to your paint. So this now would definitely be more vibrant and more orangey. Again, can't really see it too much, but it's just a little bit different tone. You could also just go back in with that straight up red. That's fine too. But this will hopefully give us some great dimension in our paint, in our wine. Some brush strokes on our hearts. All right, fantastic. Fantastic. Last but not least, we need some highlights. Go ahead and rinse that brush out. We're going to go into some white. Now I know my water's pink. That's okay. Little brush, get a little water in that white. Let's get some highlights. We're going to find areas where the light is just hitting this wine coming in. So maybe on this curve, just going to go, woo, paint from my arm. There's a little highlight. Where else would this wine be getting some light? Ooh, how about right there? And definitely swooshing down in the actual wine. There we go. And some highlights on the heart humps. So I'm going to imagine a hump there, a hump there. Kind of blends in with all the wet paint. That's all right. Let's see. I feel like there would also be a little highlight there. And each of these teardrops, bam, it's going to get a little highlight. Bam. There you go. Just kind of helps make them pop a little bit. Fantastic. We're going to go in. Same little brush into black paint. Now after the black, I would take a little break and rinse out my brushes and let this dry a minute till we come back and hit it with straight up white. I'll show you that in a second. But for right now, I got a little bit of water and some black paint. Now for this, we're gonna figure out where our wine glass is. I've done a lot of painting on here and a lot of things have been covered up, but I can see my original front line of my wine glass. And so I'm just gonna do my best to find that again. Am I doing just one perfect brush stroke? Nope. Lots of little ones. That wiggle room, right? And in between here, I can see the little back, the back of the lip of my wine glass. Like a little halo we put around it. Now the edge is pretty easy because it's gonna just follow the edge of the wine. Going back in. And we got wiggle room, so I'm not doing like one perfect brush stroke. Some of the brush strokes are inside the wine a little bit. Some of them are outside the wine a little bit. all of them are fine. They're fine. We're not gonna worry about it. Ta-da! There's a wine glass. And now the actual stem of the wine glass. There and there. Ta-da! I'm gonna kind of mess it up. I'm gonna use some scribbly, scratchy brush strokes. Have some fun with it. And that'd be perfect. I'm not concerned with perfect. I love it. All right, to give some of my wine a little dimension, while I'm using this black, I might go back through and do a light little outline on some, maybe like the bottom edge. Some of these little drips, little definition, some of the hearts. I don't want it all to look, explicitly outlined. Put a little sauce, a little accent. Why not? Love it, love it. All right, at this point, I would like this to all completely dry, and your water is probably looking a little bit like wine. So we would need to get some new water and rinse out our brushes. I'm going to pretend this is dry, and it'll be okay. New water. Let's get it. All right. New water and some clean white paint. Here's how I would finish this guy up. I would go in with that little brush again. I'd go into some clean white paint, get a little water in that clean white paint. And with this, I would find the lines of my wine glass again. So I'm not trying to cover up everything I did before, but I'm just accenting it. Just accenting it. And a little line in the back there. Just kind of accenting it. All right, now we're gonna go down the edge of the wine glass here and there. If you do wind up covering up a line, that's fine. But hopefully you have so many lines that one brushstroke would not cover them all up. So go ahead and go through there. Got a little wobble to my wine glass here, so I'm gonna go over it again. Disguise some of that wiggle room so you can't really tell. Love it. And now I'm gonna go over my wine glass stem. There's some little zingas. Fun, fun. And it's looking great. Once I get that done, I'm going to add a couple more little zingers. I like to go in this little wine stem, just like little zigzags, little zingy zings. They're kind of fun. I like to imagine I got maybe like a little, ooh, zinga there. Oh, that's kind of fun to look at. And maybe on the edge of the wine glass here, there's like a little zingy. Because that's fun. Now we need an actual highlight, and that's what's going to make this glass look like it's not just painted around the edge, but it's actually painted on the wine. The wine is sitting in the glass. So for that, I'm going to go to my bigger pointer brush. I'm going to load it up with white paint. I got a little water in that white paint. So I'm ready to go. And we're going to find some bold highlights. They're going to go straight over the front of this glass. I don't worry about what's behind it, whether it's background or wine, doesn't matter. Going in with that big pointer brush. All right, so for this guy, I'm going to find a highlight that's going to be right on the front of the glass, kind of between the wine and the background. There we go. Bold. Bold brush stroke, bold highlight. There's another one right next to it. My paint's a little bit wet, so I'm not going to tell. I like that one. I'm going to imagine that there's maybe like one other one right here. They are bold brush strokes. There you go. It is a white highlight on our painting. All right. Once you got that on there, you can decide if there's any other spots you need kind of a bold highlight. right across the front there. I'll leave that up to you, but I'm liking how that's looking, and I'm gonna make sure I got some extra little splashes and extra little things happening all around the wine. So while that dries, I'm going to rinse out my big pointer brush. I'm going to turn it around and put the back of it into some red paint. So the back, the handle, the blue part, the plastic. Gonna get a booger of red paint. I always say don't paint with boogers, but now you can. We're gonna do it. Let's go ahead and swirl it around and find some dots. All kinds of little splashies coming out. Might even have some inside my glass and on the edge. I love them. I think they look awesome. If you want to make them look wet, you can take the back of your brush in a little bit of white and you can just barely accent all those little dots with some white. And then they will look like they're shiny. I love it. All right, done with paint. The next thing that I'd like to use is some puffy paint. So puffy paint is fabric paint. It's literally puffy, Puffy, puffy paint, fabric paint, dimensional paint. It's gonna dry shiny. I'm using whites today. It's also gonna have glitter stick to it. Now my whole painting is wet, so glitter would stick to all of this. If you waited till this was dry, you went over it with this puffy paint and then give it a little shake of some clear glitter, that would be awesome. Personal preference. All right, let's make sure this puffy paint's gonna work. Get a little dry spot off. Okay, here we go. So I'm just gonna go real fast. You just wanna squeeze while you scratch the canvas. I don't know if you can like literally hear it scratching it. Right? Just feel like that is a fun way to get a little pop of some dimension. Ooh, we're gonna just imagine that didn't cut through there. And our little highlight there. We're gonna go over our uh little drippy drips with a fun little outline. I think that's awesome. I'm outside the edge, why not? And the fun thing about puffy paint too is when you are all done, you can sign your artwork. So squeeze while you scratch, things I never thought I would say in my professional career, but here we are. Squeeze while you scratch and make contact with the painting. Let's just get some glitter, even though it's all wet, why not? I love glitter, so we're gonna do it. You can kind of see some details on there, a little tiny bit. So much fun. Okay, here's how I do glitter. I give it a little shake, need less than you think. Just kind of work it around. Little movement. And again, it's going to stick to anything wet, but I think that looks awesome. I don't know if you can see the little details in there, the little sparkles. I just think it's so much fun. Yay! So I hope you enjoyed painting my I Love Wine painting. All right, guys, I look forward to painting with you again soon. Take care. Bye.